Well, hello, that's me again. Today is October 5th, 2025, and this is the end of the weekend. For some people, it is the Sunday morning in Seattle, and what you see in the beginning is essentially what Russians do pretty much all day almost, and this time it was the strike. There were strikes on number of the key industries in Lvov area. Apart from Lvov, there were many other locations, and by different estimates, while Russian Defense Ministry reports 750 geranium drones have been launched, more than 50 cruise missiles. There are after that number of the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, and as the result, the whole, there was a chaos visited upon the, especially the what is called near border industrial facilities in western Ukraine, with near border obviously with Poland, because this is where they try to hide all kinds of their remaining industries. And as you can see yourself, all kinds of those things which are now being declared, of course, by all kinds of the war criminals in the West, which are primarily most of the journalist corps in the West, that, oh yeah, they killed some civilians. Well, maybe they did, but these were military objects at which the attack was conducted, and there are all kinds of things were happening there, including attack on the gas storage in Lvov, and at energy infrastructure, and they are without lights. And Ukrainian Central, whatever the organization, which is the energy organization, which runs the electricity distribution and grid for whole of Ukraine, now officially came out and stated that expect long and constant, situation with the electricity not being delivered to the customers. So they cannot deliver it, and that's the whole point. And yes, that's what Russians do now that evidently Europeans and their SOBs, which of course the remaining of the armed forces of Ukraine, do not get the message. So then the news is tightening. Russians can go, as I state, non-stop about it for as long as it takes. And here is the basically laments, which you can find immediately in one of the most terrorist newspapers in the United States, which is, of course, Washington Post. The guys who support genocide against Russian people, and who, well, how to put it politely, they lie and they basically spew propaganda provided to them by the morons from Pentagon and from Ukraine primarily. That means lies and propaganda. What can I say? And so what can we see in terms of how Washington Post laments? Oh my gosh, look at that. So we have this situation. Russian air attack across Ukraine damages energy networks, kills 5. Okay, yeah, it's pretty good when you consider, if you think about it, how surgical Russians are, especially when you consider that, well, basically 750 plus 50 plus 2, so 802 standoff weapons have been used, and just 5. That's surgical approach to all that. And so mostly what they do, Ukrainians kill more themselves by their air defense systems, which do not work, but we'll talk about this shortly. So, and as you can see yourself, the drone and missile assault hit 9 regions and left tens of thousands without electricity as Russia ramps up its energy war ahead of winter in Ukraine. Correct. That's not just only there against the energy, but it is also about those, locations and which are being presented as some kind of the civilian storages or industrial parks which produce something which Ukraine is incapable of producing to start with. But here it is. Russia launched dozens of missiles and around 500, no, not 500, 750. But it's okay. They report, this is Washington Post, they don't have sources in Russia, they have sources only among terrorists and Nazis in Kiev. So, and then we have this situation that we need stronger defenses, fast executions of all defense agreements, especially regarding air defense, to render this aerial terror meaningless. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky wrote on Telegram. Well, he writes all kinds of things. What is not being understood, and which I will repeat it ad nauseam, it's that fact is United States has nothing more to give. And if United States doesn't have more to give, well, Europeans are just basically naked. They can provide a couple of maybe medium-range crappy air defense complexes, but so. And so they talk about that following the early morning strikes, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiga reiterated Ukrainian calls for more economic pressure on Moscow, writing on X, buying Russian energy is equal to funding war crimes against Ukraine. Supporting Ukraine is equivalent to writing yourself into the list of the supporters of Nazis. So, and genocidal maniacs. And the combined West successfully enrolled itself into this program, and so this is how it's going to be from now on, because, and we'll talk also about it, how Russians view West. West is a collaborator and is existential enemy of Russia and Russian people. But then, of course, we have this thing. This is Washington Post. Make no mistake, this is a collection of the imbeciles who have the degrees from the Ivy League in journalism. That is to say, they don't have any kind of education. They have no expertise in anything other than stringing meaningless words. But look at this. US-made Patriots are the only air defense systems that can reliably intercept Russian ballistic missiles that regularly bombard the civilian population, smashing into apartment buildings, businesses, and other civilian infrastructure. They talk actually correctly about the pathetic and impotent US-made Patriot systems whose missiles constantly damage because they fail to intercept any kind of missiles. Forget about real ballistic missiles such as Iskander. It simply is incapable of intercepting it. And yes, those missiles, as I showed you a few days ago, they successfully hit, instead of targets, they hit apartment blocks in Ukraine, which later, of course, is presented as somehow Russians attack the civilians. No, Russians do not attack civilians, unlike it is the case with NATO. NATO is really good only at fighting civilians and those people who cannot shoot back. And so they continue to present this garbage, even though systems have failed to intercept. Why even? Those systems, yet they fail to intercept, period. And we already have been through this before. Russians laugh at Patriot PAC-3. And the only danger Patriot PAC-3 represents is which it can kill or intercept legacy aircraft, such as they were successful in shooting down IL-76 with their prisoners of war being exchanged. Or, yes, they can hit sometimes some legacy, well, I mean, classic aircraft, such as Su-34, there were a number of occasions they survived. But, and then, of course, Washington Post comes up with the amazing thing. This tells you everything about the intellectual level, or rather lack thereof, of those cretins who work in, well, for most part, everywhere. The media are like that. I mean, but American media and Western media are a special case of the imbecility. Look at this. Even though systems have failed to intercept some recent attacks, including on Kyiv, in part because Russia continues to manipulate its missiles to evade the systems, experts say. There are no experts in Russia, and evidently military expertdom also is lacking dramatically, even among very many, so to speak, intel and military professionals in the United States. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but those little islands or isles of this expertise, they are nowhere near the mainstream media, which are completely bankrupt. And as I already stated, you can basically anybody who writes anything about Ukraine, they support this Goebbelsonian propaganda from Kiev and basically sell BS to unsuspecting US public. So I don't know what do they mean manipulate missiles, because, well, you cannot manipulate missiles. You can provide them with the targeting, you can develop the flight path, and yeah, you can update them. There are command updates if need be, and yeah, you design your salvos in such a way that they become combined salvos, and which use heterogeneous strike systems. And yeah, that's what Russians do, and they do it better than anybody else in the world. United States, for example, example, in terms of the expenditure of standoff weaponry, it doesn't even register on this comparison. So, and this is the thing which many people still cannot, perceive or accept, because I understand everybody has to tell United States constantly that is the greatest military power in the world, well, and finest fighting force, which is, of course, baloney. And here we have Mr. Patrushev, the secretary of the Russia Security Council, who yesterday comes out and in his interview to Russia One, he reiterates what I've been saying this for a while now, and even Vladimir Putin stated this. As you can see, that's what he says. Military people are well aware that we are now militarily stronger than any country, which is absolutely correct. Patrushev said in an interview with Russia One TV channel, VGTRK. Many people call the United States the strongest army. Yeah, the most losest army in the world. Nothing of the kind, because our army is stronger and is able to fight back, said the head of Maritime Board of the Russian Federation. Yes, he is also part of his duties is he is the head of the Maritime Board. He actually, Mr. Patrushev, with those who doesn't know, he has a graduate engineering degree in, well, basically marine engineering. And he is very competent man in terms of the naval affairs. So, and that's what he says. After all, we're now saying that the war in Ukraine is completely wrong. The entire West is at war against Russia, which is absolutely correctly. All the economies of the West have united and are fighting against our country, Patrushev added. Unfortunately, in economic terms, we are not the strongest country, which is true. Russia is the fourth economy in the world. But I must say that our population shows the best qualities of people, and the entire population got involved and helps our army. He is absolutely correct. And I'm not going to be constantly saying things about what, or reiterating things which he just said. I mean, I've been writing about it for, 10 plus 11 years now, non-stop, telling that what you see is primarily the domain of the so-called military expertise from the combined West. Well, what in reality is nothing more than, indeed, legerdemain. It's all this Wizard of Oz thing, smoke and mirrors, but reality is not a single country, including United States, is capable of conducting serious combined arms operations of scale. Russia can, and Russia holds of, the combined West. Not only she does it successfully and advancing every day, of which I will talk. But yes, responding to some people who still continue to circulate rumors, foreign agent. Well, Russia has the thing similar to the FARA, which is a Foreign Agent Registry Act in the United States. And yes, Russian government, Russian Justice Ministry, they designate some organizations and specific people as the foreign agents. These are the people who sit on the support from the financial sources in the West, in this particular case, or any other foreign country. And as a result, they are foreign agents. Levada Center, which is the foreign agent, it is supported by the number of the foreign sources, is the statistical agency. And there are lies, damn lies, and then there is statistics. But we cannot ignore statistics, obviously. I operate with statistics constantly as much as I can. And fact is, I would love to have the statistics, for example, in terms of the operational data, obviously, which is highly classified, but which I would know will be highly reliable. It will have high, basically, reliability. That means also very high probability of being true. And so here is Levada Center, recent, just a few days ago, and this is the public opinion polls and everything they do about measuring the public opinion in Russia. And here we have this situation. Here is the who approve Vladimir Putin in percentages. As you can see yourself, 87% of Russian population supports Vladimir Putin, and only 11 people do not. So, as you can see yourself, do I need to even go there? And these are the people who exist or subsist primarily on the foreign money, on the foreign investments, if you wish. And even they cannot deny the fact that, and so those people who say that, there is some, kind of dissatisfaction, and some oligarchs, really oligarchs who want to conspire to do something about it. That is just preposterous. So yeah, and then of course we have also the situation which is there. What do you think? Do you think that the affairs in the country are generally moving into the good or correct direction? Or if you think that the country is on the wrong way? Well, as you can see yourself again, 70% of the people think that the country is doing good and is doing well. So only 17% against it, and 14% do not know, this gray line. They do not know if it's right or wrong. I mean, is it going well or not well? So again, this is the approval ratings, which in the combined West, they can only dream about, And so anybody who thinks that when you look attentively, even measured by the foreign agent, we can assume that probably native Russian agencies like FCOM obviously can measure it and probably be slightly more biased towards positive responses. But even this type of organization, they cannot hide this. This is what it is. And if anybody thinks that Russians are, oh yeah, they still think about West, or they really view those brotherly people in Ukraine, I have actually news for you. Things are much more complex and much better in Russia, especially economically. And this is where it brings us to the situation on the front line, to understand that what is happening right now is just merely slowly moving the dial from maybe 6, 7 to maybe finally to 8, 9. And this is what was happening for the last months. And it may be somehow, I'm being facetious, of course, related to the fact that Mr. Trump said that, oh yeah, resuming start is a good idea, it's a positive idea. That obviously there is something happening between Russians and Americans which are not presented to Europeans, and they're not supposed to know it. So, and here we are. If we go and look at the tally yesterday, as you can see yourself, well, Ukraine resumes its massive, well, it's not really that massive drone attacks, but yeah, it's massive. These are the drones, UAVs, they are large drones, which are launched at the targets in Russia, and they are shot down. You see, this is 314. This is losses. This is what is intercepted, which again proves how effective, and it is a dramatic effectiveness, combat effectiveness of the Russian air defense system, and it's improving constantly. And so you can see yourself, yeah, we're hovering constantly, slightly above, slightly below 1,500 a day of the key IAs of the armed forces of Ukraine. And here's some interesting situation which is unfolding if you take a look attentively at the maps today at what is called Kliban-Byk. It's near Konstantinovka. As you can see yourself, what is shown on the map, well, when you have this night potty thing, so there is some kind of cauldron, and yes, if you take a look at this Kliban reservoir, and you can see yourself this basically a kind of horned figure shape there, different estimates say that somewhere upward of 8 brigades are basically pinned down there. And there is a reason why they cannot do anything, because they have their backs to their reservoir. And if somebody thinks that it is a small reservoir, let me show you something. This is Kliban-Byk reservoir. Look at this. It is actually 7 kilometers long, the expanse. So, and as you can see yourself, below it to the south, you can see those forest strips, and this is where those people hide. And there are many Nazis there. Actually, they were thrown there, the best units of those fanatical Nazis. They do not want to surrender. So guess what? They are essentially surrounded with their backs to this Kliban-Byk reservoir, and they are being annihilated as we speak. As you can see, so there's no way for them to get out of there, and so they don't have any supply, so they will be all physically annihilated. And we're talking about some really large concentration, probably upward of 10,000 maybe, but nobody even knows a precise amount or precise number of the Nazi regime fighters there, but they are being annihilated constantly. And as you can see yourself, this is also Kupiansk, and yeah, this is what is happening in the southern part of Kupiansk, where the remnants of the forces there are being obliterated too. So yeah, it's just across the board. You can see yourself what is happening in Shostka, which is also, it was used to be the chemical industry there, and so yeah, it's just, I mean, non-stop, wiping out everything which moves there. And this will continue and will probably ramp up, or the operational tempo will only increase. But as I already stated, Russians can turn up to 11. And when it's 11, the next thing which comes after 11 is 12, and that means the end of the West physically. So, and when Mr. Patrushev says things which I've been saying, that, yeah, some people say that U.S. Army for some reason is the greatest thing. It's not. I mean, it's a powerful army, make no mistake. And it still has some very decent officers, it has decent personnel, but reality is, come on, I mean, this is the real war which you see now. And here is the thing which has to be constantly stated, that United States doesn't have real Russia experts. And I mean Russia experts, not those guys who read, let's say, some kind of Pasternak or Solzhenitsyn and say, oh yeah, we're specialists in Russian literature. No, you're not. But the point is that there are no people who really have the grasp. As Larry Johnson stated, that Cy Hirsch, yeah, he's probably a good journalist, he has good sources, but the point is, he is no military specialist. He wouldn't understand the first thing about real warfare, and because you have to have a real serious military intelligence background. And even here, when you have people who supposedly have the decent military engineering and all kinds of backgrounds in the United States or in combined West, you still have people who deliver all kinds of BS, which is completely detached from the reality. And let me demonstrate it to you. There are those events which will create again very many butthurt military experts all across the board, ranging from professional military to all those fanboys in the YouTube who are all those, you know what, oh yeah, I was in Afghanistan, you know, and something like I shot at some Afghan wedding or something like that. Okay. Do you have the real serious engineering background? Do you understand operations? Well, operations, you know, it's math, it's physics, so much of it. They teach this in military academies only. And so we have this. Let me remind you, 4 months ago, oh yeah, sure, Russia's Su-75 checkmate fighter is at the dead end. You see, Russia checkmate unveiled in 2021 as a proposed single-engine fifth-generation stealth fighter was marketed as the cost-effective export alternative to F-35. So, and they say, well, the repeated flight delay is now projected for 2025, blah, 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 blah. So they talk about that Russians immediately have to deliver something which, without consideration of the safety and, you know what, streamlining of the test process. But again, you cannot explain to those people. Here is the Su-75, and in 2023, so this is, as you can see yourself, it was the November 2023, and Russians reported preparations for the production of the first Russian checkmate fighters have begun. Did they begin? Absolutely. But of course, this is the routine. It doesn't make headlines. Plus, it reflects very positively, in fact, is impressively on Russian military-industrial complex and military-industrial and just industrial and economic base. So why not just forget about things and not report on them? Well, I have a report for you from 2 days ago, and it's probably already happened. Here it is. As you can see yourself, this is Russia's newest fifth-generation Su fighter spotted on the airfield. Apparently, he has it either already made or is preparing to make its maiden flight. And so, There you go. And guess what? This is what is happening now in terms of the developing and testing of the Su-75 before it hits the serial production, which it will. And after that, once all kinks are worked out, it will go both to arm Russian armed forces and air forces, but also will go out there as a not only viable, but the much better alternative to F-35. And you know how Russians make aircraft. Russian combat aircraft are not arguably, they are the best in the world, and they have a stellar combat record. And you saw yourself that each time I put up all those daily tally from the all kinds of the all sectors of the zones of special military operation, you see yourself how many of those foreign fighters, or rather, well, Ukrainian fighters are foreign fighters, and all kinds of other combat aircraft have been shot down. If you take a look attentively at this again, you can see yourself. This is for yesterday even, going back to our tally table, you can see yourself planes 667. And these are not just shot down by the air defense complexes. Many are. I don't know what is the percentage, probably half at least. But the rest of it were downed by Russian Air Force, including the record-breaking, the record-setting actually, not record-breaking, record-setting, basically engagements beyond visual range up to 215 kilometers and even longer. So this is, for Western Air Forces, for NATO Air Forces, they can only dream about that thing because they don't have weapons, they don't have the net-centric system installed there in a sense that which it will allow proper targeting. And, well, what can I say? It's just a simple, cold, hard fact of life. And, but when we talk about Europe and we talk about what is happening and why Russians do not want to do anything and have anything in common with Europe, here's just in the conclusion the thing which we have to keep in mind, that in Berlin, I'm not going to be showing it, in Berlin they published a book. Berlin government is offering children a pro-prostitution picture book intended to teach them that the sex trade is safe and enjoyable. Rosie Needs Money, which is written from the perspective of a little girl, is targeted at children age 6-12. So, and I want to forestall again all kinds of complaints or people saying, oh, we are not like that. Well, maybe you personally not all like that. Your civilization is. Your so-called culture in Europe this is what it is. You supported it by voting, general, average European. Is there a thing like this in United States? There is. Corrupt and in many respects even criminal teachers union in the United States. They are supporters of the programs of mutilation of children, and they will probably have no problems teaching them, which they do. They invite all kind of weirdos to get together with the parents who are not really parents. Their husbands are cuckolds, their wives are dominant bitches, but that's what they want to do. And American teacher, you lost any kind of the respect. And deservedly so. You are the promoters of this kind of the actually insanity and satanism in American schools against American children who are basically not protected. And that is why, while many people may ask, what is the deal with army and all that in cities in the United States? I went through the collapse of the Soviet Union, and I almost died there, so it's a whole other story. But I am ambivalent for now. I might change my mind down the road. But for now, I can see what is happening in the country and what those people wanted this country, United States, to be. And for now, United States fights back. Europe doesn't. It's over. And so I'm going to leave it like that. And so this is what I wanted to tell you today in, so to speak, wrapping up this weekend proceedings, so to speak. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. Well, have a nice rest of the weekend. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.